This is called a jack stand. It is an L-brace construction, so if you notice these two pieces form an L and these two pieces form an L. This portion of the L-brace gives it its stiffness. If you just use a flat plate, and I've seen that done before, it's a bit too flexible. And it is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. I'll let you figure out the geometry on that one, but it's relatively straightforward. This one is actually cut down. It's sort of a miniature, 4 feet high. I'm going to be using this as a representative of a jack stand. Everything's miniature today. I'll be using these window headers as representatives of a wall to show you how to put set walls together and how to get rid of the seams. Now, if you're shooting for stills, then you could just Photoshop the seams out. In fact, I would recommend that you don't try to fill the seams if you are shooting still. Because it's just going to screw up your walls and shorten their life. Let's get to it. To put a set wall together, generally we use a 1 5/8 or even better, a 1 1/4 inch drywall screw with we call them jack washers, because specifically for this purpose, but this is a 3/4 inch diameter outside diameter, 3/16 inside diameter washer, which is a bit of a strange size, but you can find them easily at Home Depot and Lowe's. The reason we use a washer on this tapered head screw is that if you drive the tapered head screw into your jack stand, all of your ribs are at 2, 4, 6 feet, and so that means you're going to have a line of perforations from this guy. And it's far better to just penetrate with the screw threads themselves and not drive the head of the screw into the wood, because if you do, your jack stand is going to fall apart in short order. That didn't happen. Before you start putting your walls together, look at the edges of them and look for this sort of spackle creep that happens in between. That will keep your walls from sitting flat together. And I wouldn't normally use I just have it at hand, but normally I would use a scraper tool for this. But just get rid of that stuff first. Make sure you have a clean edge. And you might even want to sand it a little bit to make sure that there are no pock marks from old screws. Once you've got that done, then it's time to join two walls together. So once it's time to join two walls together, it's best to have someone else stand in front of the wall and guide you. Trying to do this alone by matching up the frames on the back sides of the flats is doable, but it's not as good as having a set of eyeballs in the front. So now what I've done here, these walls are in decent shape. So what I've done here is I've got a screw at the bottom. I moved up 2 feet, make sure it's still matching. Drop a screw in, go up 2 feet, drop the screw in. If the wall happens to be kind of wavy, you can correct some of that stuff by doing shorter intervals with screws to try and get the walls to match up. Now I personally use this Drydex pink color indicating spackle. And it turns white when it's dry, so that's kind of a handy thing. And we're trying to go fast most of the time, so having something where where you're not just feeling it and saying, I think it's dry, having an indicator is kind of nice. What I will say about spackling is you want to use as little as possible. That should be pretty obvious. And I can feel right here, between my bottom screw and my 2-foot screw, I can feel that this wall is a little bit proud. It's a little bit forward. So when I am spackling, there you can see the indication of which wall is proud. Now what I'll do is, especially once I find those areas, is I will put more spackle on the low side and then bridge with almost my full blade width from the high spot all the way down here to the low. That way, I've got the smoothest transition between the high spot and the low spot. And you'll get pretty quick at being able to determine what's high and what's low. So doing this initially as an indication. Now, the other thing is that what I've done right now, where I've completely bladed all the excess spackle off, I'm gonna have to come back in and do a second coat. But what I do know is, again, I'll be able to see which side my spackle has to go on. And so I can just do a quick drag on the low side to make it a little bit proud so that when the spackle is gonna shrink when it dries. And I wanna have a little excess left over. And then as soon as I can start to see a clear indication of the proud side of the wall, I'm gonna stop sanding. The other thing that I wanna see is, you can see there's a fairly hard edge right here on this side of the spackle. Even when it's dry and it's white, if you ever see a hard edge like that, that's dimensional, and that'll show up in your paint. So once you've done sanding it, you want to have a ghost all the way around wherever your spackle border is. And that way you know that it's not dimensional. I would recommend hand sanding this with a sanding block. I would not recommend you using a machine because it's going to remove, the spackle is too soft. It'll remove it too quickly, and you'll just tear right through it and have to do another coat. You're looking for that sort of ghost perimeter everywhere, never a hard edge, and I don't want to see the pure paint color of the proud wall showing up right here, because that means that, again, I'm going to have a dimensional step in between the two walls. So if you're interested in the more interesting side of practical effects, you might want to take a look at some of the stuff we're doing on Patreon. You may have noticed that we're doing less YouTube videos and we're putting more of our content on Patreon. We are going to be starting this animatronic eye build, and we have a complete tutorial on a Simon Says game that Matt has done, and he mailed out PCBs for everybody to build and follow along and all that kind of stuff. So we have like a community going at Patreon, and you might want to take a look at that. Link in the description below, and we'll see you soon.